Alright, today is a very special day for me because today I get to take a look at the Corsair K100 RGB with optical switches. Alright, so we got our instruction manual and our warranty. We got our extra keycaps, and we got our wrist rest. Now, as with all the premium keyboards, they do have two of these USB ports. One of them is for the keyboard, and then one of them is for the hub. These are both USB-A. We can see that this one is labeled with a keyboard, so if you want to, you can plug this one in and leave this one unplugged. This one's going to be just for the pass-through. We got everything protected. And they've also got this cable management system, so that's actually kind of an improvement. If we take a look at my old K95, we can see it's just got this X pattern, which isn't really all that helpful. With the K100, we got a couple extra options. So it can go in from the side, which is probably going to be how I'm going to be running it. So you can run your mouse cord in through here, and then push it out the top, plug it into the top. So that's neat. There's a little upgrade on that. Very cool. And this one has a magnetic wrist rest. So this is something that's fairly important to me because I use that more than most people. All right, so it just kind of clicks on. I love the look of this wrist rest. Out of all the keyboards I've ever tried, this one has definitely got the nicest looking and actually feeling wrist rest. So they did a really good job with that. So if you're wondering what the difference is between the K70, the K95, and the K100, the K70 does not have these G keys right here. So these are programmable keys. You can set those up through the Corsair IQ software. You can also use the Elgato Stream Deck software to bind these. So these can be very cool. If you don't want these and you want a shorter keyboard, you can get the K70. It is the same keyboard as the K95. So then the difference between the K100 and the K95 is that this one is designed for speed. So this is designed for making keystrokes as fast as absolutely possible. So if you're doing any kind of competitive gaming or you just want to make children cry, this is the keyboard that you want. The K95 in most conditions is going to be a better keyboard for doing anything productivity because you're going to have those other keys. So you got the Cherry MX Brown, which is going to have those tactile presses. You got the other ones that make the clicking noise, which I hate. But the tactile feedback for me is actually a pretty big deal. It was a hard push. It was a hard sell for me to go to these optical switches just because they're linear keys. They do not have that tactile bump that I've come to love so much, especially from Corsair. Now, the absolute best keyboard that they could make would be one that would have the tactile bump and the optical keys. You might say, well, you can't do that, but you can. These ones are actually optical and tactile. They're made by a different company. They just don't feel as good as the Cherry MX Brown switches that Corsair makes. So I've been running that keyboard with my main computer for a while, and I was just hoping to fall in love with it, but I just didn't. The Cherry MX Brown switches are better. But for right now, Corsair does not make a tactile optical switch. So this is the keyboard that I bought for myself. One day, somewhere in the future, they're going to make a tactile bump optical switch, and when that happens, I want to be the first person to own it because that is the switch that I've been dreaming of, a Corsair tactical optical switch. Until that happens, this is still the best keyboard on the market. And by that, I mean, I've tried every high-end keyboard that there is. I've tried them from every single branch you can think of. Their best flagship keyboards. None of them are as good as this one right here. It's fast. It feels good. It's not as good as a tactile, but it's not that bad. But I think the biggest thing with this, like you can hear what I'm doing right here, or I'm hammering them all the way down. You don't have to do that with this. This one has a 1mm actuation distance, which means you can just kind of basically tap it a little bit and it will give you that keystroke. So that's what makes this one so fast, plus just being optical technology. I started using optical with my mice. I'm never going back. Optical switches are the best switches, hands down. And out of every keyboard on the market, even ones that try the optical switches, this one's still the best. I tried the analog switches from Razer. If I wanted to do something analog, I would just use a joystick. Although I could maybe train myself to get that, that slight push on a key to get that analog stroke. I just don't like it. Keyboards are for keyboard things in my opinion. So after trying all those keyboards and really looking into them, this is the keyboard that I went with for myself. This is going to be my main daily driver for my main computer. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these things on because using the K95, I have come to realize that these textured switches are way better than these regular switches. I think these ones look cool, but these ones are better. If nothing else, I love that they give you the options, so you can do whatever feels good to you. And we also have a puller. So you can see these got kind of a texture on them. These just make it so much easier to find home. So you can see this is a WSAD. These are all double shot keys, even these ones on here. So all these keys are double shot, which means that it doesn't matter how much you press and wear on these things, you're not going to be wearing that letter out. So it's going to look the same today as it does in the future. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to press it into that key and then pop it out. You can see what these look like. They're just crosses, so you can just take these things and you can flip them around accidentally, so just make sure you put them on correct. And it just presses on. If you look at it, you can see it has a slight angle on it, and I just love that. Like these feel way better than those standard keys. If anything, the fact that other keyboard manufacturers don't do this is proof that Corsair is just better. So that's what that looks like. We got a slight curve to the left, slight curve to the right, and slight curve at the top. So your fingers just, they really rest in that area. So you also have this set. This is QFERWD. So I'll give you a slightly different layout. It would be QWERFND. Now you could use those with these if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It's really whatever you like. Now there's only one other thing that I would change if I had creative control over this keyboard. And of course I don't. But what this is, you can kind of see how this plugs into the bottom. So it's out of the way. I would love it if they did that with this port on the bottom, so that I could take my mouse, I could route it in here, maybe do some kind of a loop, so I could put like 2 or 3 feet in here, plug that into the bottom, and then have that coming out the top, so that my mouse wire is coming out the top instead of out the side. That would be ideal for me. Now I do understand this is nice if I'm going to be plugging in thumb drives or anything like that, but I never use that. I just use the computer, or at worst I use a hub. This port to me is for a mouse, and I would way rather have that underneath so I could just pick up the whole keyboard, and more importantly, I wouldn't have to worry about if I set a drink down, accidentally setting on top of that and breaking that port. So here's the wrist rest for my K95, and as you can see, these have plastic clips and they have broke off. This is the main reason I decided to upgrade to this keyboard. Not because that keyboard had anything wrong with it. I still love that keyboard. It is still a great keyboard. But like I said, the wrist rest is a big deal to me. This has a magnetic wrist rest and it's cushioned. This is a much better keyboard just because of that. So let's go ahead and give it some power. And there we go. Now another big upgrade for the K100 over the K95 is this wheel right here. You get a ton of extra functionality with that. The lighting on here I actually think is better. I think that the K95 looks a little bit obsolete at this point with that bar going right over the top. This one has the bar on the top still, so it's going to be pushing light onto the desk, which I think looks a lot better. Like if you want an elegant look, the K100 is the obvious choice. And plus I really just like the default color. I'm going to turn off some of these lights. With the lights on, it looks better to the eye than it does on the camera, but this thing is incredibly beautiful. I actually really like the default color profile on this thing. That's one of the things, like this, the IQ software to make this thing connect to the computer so you can control all the lighting and all that stuff. It's kind of a big download. It's kind of annoying that they got it on there. I don't want anything running in the background. The fact that I can just plug this in and have something that's working that's actually beautiful right out of the bat, that is fantastic. Which is also one of the reasons I really like the K95. Like the lighting profile they have, the default lighting profile, it's just beautiful. But anyway, we got the functionality here, so we can do things like adjust the brightness, and we can also press the button in the middle to get different options. So we can also use this to rewind and fast forward media. We can also use this for a track selector, scrolling through applications, or for zooming. So a lot of functionality out of one little button. I like that. I do also like that they put these buttons on the top. Like these are a little different. I like them. The fact that they're raised up a little bit more and they actually feel better. And yeah, the volume wheel on here is second to none. They did a really good job with the keys. If nothing else, Corsair makes keys right. 100%. There is no other manufacturer that does it the same. This also has 4,000 hertz polling, which makes it way faster than the K95. Again, the name of the game with this guy is speed. But more importantly, it has 200 onboard profiles that you can save. I really like that. So the fact that I can get this thing set up the way that I want to and then be done, that's fantastic. So overall, like I said, I've tried a ton of different keyboards. This is the one that I'm getting for myself that I'm going to be using as my daily driver. This is an incredible keyboard.